live. Doing a chat now with my brother. You guys know him, Jedd. He's been on the chat before, but I thought he'd have an interesting take on something that affected me the other day, and I'm sure it affects him in one way or the other, because he's in that field of occupation. So just recently I was going to work the other day, and I had heard on the news, well, obviously everybody knows I live in Illinois. I work downtown in Chicago, and I was going to work the other day, and there were swarms of teachers just on the blocks. Every single block was packed.
And
packed,
students.
packed. And students. Marching because right now the Chicago public school teachers are on strike. I guess the wages are not up to what they want. There's a lot that goes into it, and I'll let Jedd maybe explain it a little better than I do. But it was something that just caught my attention because I've heard about it on the news, and you see these things on the news, and you see the mayor speaking in front of everybody. But until you are really like engulfed in it, I'm walking to work, and I had to walk through these swarms of people who just, I look at their faces, and they're chanting, and they're yelling, and they're really passionate about what they're looking to get as teachers. So I wanted to talk to Jedd a little bit about his thoughts on this whole situation that's happening here in Chicago. So I'll let Jedd open the floor just a little bit to what he's seen or heard about these teacher strikes, because obviously it affects the people in Chicago, but I'm curious to see if it's going to have a widening effect to people outside of Chicago.
Well, it's already the whole teacher strike thing, especially in recent times, has hit the forefront of news. I think it's becoming more of a hot topic, and it's actually unfortunate. I would think as a teacher that if people in this country saw more teacher strikes happening, it would bring outrage to the conditions for teachers, what classrooms look like around the country. But instead, I feel like there's also it's also provoking feelings across the country of, oh, these teachers are just greedy. They just want more. They just keep wanting more. I want to put it all in context in the sense that these are teachers. Mm-hmm. So people that got into this field, like me, I knew I was never going to become a millionaire. There's no chance of me becoming a millionaire. It is what it is. I'm working with students every day. I love what I do. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it. But when people talk about teachers being greedy, and these aren't teachers in a very affluent area or very wealthy district.
They're the public school teachers in downtown cities.
One of the biggest, massive school districts in the country. And a lot of them probably could be other places, but they're there. And people don't realize the conditions that teachers, especially in inner city, I mean, when I was in the Bronx, teaching was rough. Mm-hmm. And these teachers in Chicago are going through the same types of things, but worse.
So can you
forget about their wages for a second? One thing that makes this strike different from a lot of other teacher strikes is that a lot of the issues that are on the table right now are child related, are student related. A lot of people think
to benefit the student, like
exactly. Mm-hmm. People think the teachers are in this for themselves. They're only caring about what they need. They don't care about anything else. They're on the picket line right now because they're in a situation where they have probably the most high need students.
Yep.
Some of the most high need students in the country. Mm-hmm. The most vulnerable students because they don't have anyone advocating for them. So that's the thing. We have to keep this in mind. So many places in this country, kids get a lot of things. And to get a lot of things, a lot of it is because they have people advocating for them, be it their parents, politicians, or whatever it is.
Or they have the means to get it, whether it's money or stuff like that, where it's education is free.
It goes hand in hand because where there's money, there's involvement. And if people are involved, they're advocating for the students. They're going to get more. Mm-hmm. And these are the most vulnerable students that really are getting shafted worse than anyone. And the teachers are out there not just because they're obviously they're looking to be able to make a living wage that they're doing this difficult work and able to actually live in Chicago. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of the problem with the fact that they're so underpaid is that a lot of them probably can't even afford to live where they were.
Yeah.
But in any case, we're talking about like cutting libraries, nurses, social workers, psychologists, and these are the places where they need them the most.
Let's take it just a step back real quick, because I really only hear about. Luckily, I think we were fortunate enough to go to elementary, like a good elementary school, a good middle school, a good high school. Well, some people. I mean, I know the high school you went to. People in the Westchester area will say it was a tough high school. I think you had great teachers. A great experience. But a lot of the times I only see these, tough classrooms, and it sounds cheesy, but I see it on like, the Ellen DeGeneres show, or like all these like news outlets that, in the morning will go to a elementary school and they'll praise this teacher for doing a great job. And it looks like a tough situation. They'll say she's got no coloring books and the school needs all this money, and they'll donate $10,000-$15,000. And all those stories are great, but that goes on in so many different other elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. You're fortunate now to be in the suburbs, which I guess is different than these public school situations where
much different.
So
speaking from experience, is much different.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, what, for people that don't know, that people were fortunate enough to go to to a certain school that, felt like they had everything necessary. They had the tools, they had the textbooks. You taught in the South Bronx. Can you walk us through what teaching in like an inner city school is like?
Well, it was in Northeast Bronx, but it was a rough area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you're in an environment where it's kind of every man for himself, every woman for herself. It's the teachers have very little support, mm-hmm. and some teachers are lucky. They have an administration that really supports them and gets behind them and is able to help them out in difficult situations. A lot of schools aren't like that. And this is something that they're talking about in Chicago as well. Just by the way, the union president, Michelle Gunderson, because I was talking to the president of my union also, mm-hmm. and she and I were talking about the whole situation, just how crazy it is that it's gotten to this. But she just tweeted out right now, the leader of the Chicago union, that their bargaining team is going over 10 pages of responses from the board. And she said, we're experts at grading homework, so every word counts. But I guess they're getting closer to an agreement. But the fact that teachers have to take it to this measure is crazy. But anyway, back to the Bronx. Mm-hmm. You have a situation where you pack kids into a classroom, 30, 35 kids. People don't realize what it is to manage a classroom, especially with high need students. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't have resources like special ed teachers that are working with the students, social workers, psychologists,
a teacher's aide or something to help.
A teacher's aide, but mm-hmm. you can't even begin to teach. Teaching is the least of your worries. You're trying to put out so many different fires that by the time you've figured out a way to control everything, you're just trying to maintain,
the status quo,
maintain a stable environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation is that you're teaching, not just maintaining discipline. And that's something that people don't realize. So you have a place like Chicago right now where there are up to 42 students in a classroom, and that's just mind-boggling because each student needs help. Mm-hmm. Each student is going to have his or her own needs. And people don't realize, they just think it's like a business. That's what I hear a lot. It's, why don't you just treat education like a business? And if we run it like a business, it'll run well. But businesses don't have the same variables that education does. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Every single student is a variable. In business, you have so many things that are controllable that you can look at and say, well, this isn't working, let's cut that. You can't do that.
A number is a number. A person is a person,
Right, and every kid is a different person with different needs, and you want to meet those needs. And they just don't have the resources. And teachers got fed up, and they walked out.
How do you think
people don't realize that?
How do you think it gets to that point? Like, where do you think it began in, like, why does this happen in the inner cities compared to the suburbs, where eventually it boils up to this point where you get 42 kids in a class?
So I think that, especially in inner cities, and this, I was talking to the president of my union, and so Rahm Emanuel, who
not
was
liked
like
here in
Obama's
Chicago.
guy, but he was the one that started creating a lot of problems for the public schools, because he started getting into the whole charter school wave. And people think, oh, charter schools, those are awesome. People don't understand that charter schools work off of tax dollars, but they don't abide by the same rules that public schools do. They don't have to follow the same standards. It's a completely different world, charter schools.
And you're also plucking out the good kids from the public schools to bring them to the charter schools, which could make the public schools worse.
Well, that's part of it. But what happens is you have parent involvement, because if a parent knows that they can put their kid in the lottery to get them to a charter school, right off the bat, you're working with a parent that is supportive of education, of their student, of the school. So that helps out the whole situation right off the bat. You have parents that are more involved. So then there's that. But you're also thinking about it, like, people see charter schools and they don't realize the amount of money that goes to just test prep. So we're not actually teaching kids to think. We're teaching them to take a test so that their stats look really, really good. And then it's like, well, how come we can't just do what the charter schools are doing? Charter schools are killing it. They're doing a great job. Meanwhile, it's like people are like, these public schools are garbage. Charter schools also have a place. They have a way to incentivize good behavior and good performance. If you're not behaving or you're not doing something right in a charter school, they can say, you're out of here. You couldn't do that where I worked in the Bronx. It wasn't like you're acting up. You're out of here. You're going to that school now. No, you have to figure out a solution. So there's a lot of things. They don't have to accept the same percentage of special ed students. And so everything is kind of geared towards making them on paper look a lot better. And they're funneling tax dollars into those programs.
So the tax dollars that are funneled into the charter school take away from the public schools, whereas if we didn't have the charter school, more of that money would be going to the public schools.
Of course. A lot of this is where the money is allocated.
So are the charter school, because I thought I heard that some of the charter school teachers were protesting with these public school teachers as well. Maybe they were just certain ones, just like
in solidarity, maybe.
So charter schools, in your opinion, is the biggest problem to what's
the biggest? No, I don't know that it's the biggest. I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of money that's not being put in the right places. If you want to take it even a step further back, I think a problem that's going on in our country right now is that teachers are viewed not as valuable assets in our society, but rather, I don't know, maybe babysitters, or they're looked at people who are just kind of like whatever, like let's attack the teachers. Like, before we attack anyone else, other public servants, let's attack the teachers. And the problem with that is it's kind of like it's a reflection on our society. If we're not valuing our teachers, we're not valuing our future. I know it sounds cliche. It sounds so corny to say that, but we're living in a society now where teachers are the ones that are being cut, and budgets are being cut, and teachers are having to strike in order just to get the bare minimum of things to make education happen. Yet people are wondering why we're falling behind as a nation. We don't value education.
Yeah.
We look at teachers and we're like, yeah, cut their budget. They'll figure it out. Put 42 kids in a class. Have only one nurse for every 5 schools. It's like, take away psychologists for students that are really having difficult time because they come from really difficult areas. Like, these are things that would seem like common sense.
But what do you think it is that, when we went to, school and we were coming up, it wasn't, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I think now we live in a time where there should be more school psychologists that a kid can go to and speak to. But do you think we live in a time now where parents are, just looking for more things in their kids to say something's wrong with him and he needs an extra teacher or more treatment or something like that. Whereas in the past, a teacher might have been able to handle, like, I feel like I was in big classes of 30 kids or something like that. And now it's just like, we're looking for more support, which I agree. I think teachers should have more support.
We're looking for more support in the places that need it the most. It goes back to what I said before. There are teachers and students that are being affected the most right now, and they're the most vulnerable because they don't have people advocating for them. You have students, some of them that live in foster care. You have some of them that are living in really difficult areas, and then each one of them has a lot of stuff going on in life. Yet there's 40 of them in one class. So yeah, in a suburban school, it's possible that there are bigger classes, but maybe it's easier to handle, or maybe like we're talking about a high needs area that doesn't have anything to be successful.
Do you think even if all the demands were met and everything went right, put yourself back in your classroom in the Bronx, if you had a teacher's aide, do you think everything can be funneled correctly? Like, do you trust the administrators and do you trust the people at the top to do the right things with this, either money that teachers got or, extra like there's people that would question that,
Of course, but we're always going to be skeptical. But if the system continues the way it's continuing, it's just set up for failure. There's never going to be an improvement in the system if it continues the way it's going. And I think a big problem with this isn't really dealing with administration, right? Because it's not like a smaller district like where I work. You're dealing with the mayor, right, who has control of the schools. And the problem with a lot of these places, even nationally, is that we're putting people who know nothing about education in a position to run education. If you told, like, that's like me telling me to go run the firehouse down the block.
So you're saying, like, so who are you saying? You're saying the mayor is having to decide on what a teacher needs and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're deciding where the money's going.
Yeah,
they're deciding if the teachers' contracts. They're deciding all of these things. These aren't educators. They don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
And if you put anyone, like, take this situation and replace it with any other scenario,
replacing a police officer with, just I don't know. I look at it in the NBA standards. When the referees went on strike, they try to replace them with just regular guys, and they couldn't do it. And it's just like,
yeah, but these are probably even. I'm talking about, like, these are people that think they know education because at one point they were a student. They think they know education because they walk into schools, and these schools put on a dog and pony show for the mayor and for other people. We did it when I was in the city.
Yeah, I remember doing it.
I heard Bloomberg's coming.
Yeah.
Put up the posters.
Raise your hand when I ask a question.
What is this? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So you can come in and see, like, this is great. There's no problems in the city. That's what it is. And they aren't making the right decisions for kids. At the end of the day, it's all about the kids. Teachers obviously care about their own ability to survive and to make a living. But these teachers are there because they're not getting what they need to be successful with these students.
Yeah.
You're set up for failure right now.
I think in a way, and I talked to Mike Sloan about this, he had mentioned, because I was really praising him.
That was a great interview, by the way.
Thanks. I was praising him for, going into the Marines and being in the military and, putting his life on the line for the country and this and that. And he sort of stopped me and said, like, at the end of the day, like, people praise the military for, defending, me and you. But in reality, like, it was a job for myself. It was something to do when I was out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I guess, like, teachers, in a way, they can use students as like that. Hey, we want to get paid more and stuff like that. I don't know. Bernie Sanders wants to raise the minimum wage to like $60,000, and a teacher can come out and say it's all for the students, but in reality, a lot of teachers just get a job because it's a profession for them to do.
Yeah, but so let me put it to you like this: no teacher gets into teaching because they want to become rich. That's just a thing. Like teachers aren't like, I'm going to graduate from college. I'm looking for a job. What am I going to do? I need to make some money. I need to pay off loans. What am I going to do? I know. I'll become a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not. In fact, there have been certain grants and federal aid to try to incentivize teaching, like AmeriCorps and New York City Teaching Fellows, Teach for America. These are things that they've had to create to bring people into teaching. So it's not like people are banging down the doors like, I need this job. This is the best paying job in our country. I think for the most part, teachers are in it because they want to teach.
Yeah.
If you're not, so it's like, I think about it like a doctor. Like I think about Nico, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Nico talks about the different things that he does in the ER, it's like he's describing a movie. He's so passionate about it. He talks about it like it's, and I'm over here saying like, how are you talking about this like this?
Yeah.
But he loves what he does. And he wouldn't be able to do that if he didn't. Right? Would you want a doctor operating on you just because he knows he's making a good salary?
No.
No. And how long is that doctor going to survive in that field? Right? Day in, day out, working crazy hours, surgery, dealing with, you name it, right? Is that doctor going to last?
No, they get burnt out.
No chance. No chance.
Yeah.
It's the same way. You think a teacher who's just in it for the salary is going to be able to go in front of 25 to 30 kids every day, pour out all of their energy, grade papers, plan lessons, and forget about like in class, you're constantly like, oh, you don't get it? Let me talk to you about that. Let me figure out a way to reteach this. You do get it. All right, let me give you something else to challenge you.
Yeah, and then stay after school for extra help and stuff.
People don't realize how much goes into this. And I'm not saying it's like the most difficult. I mean, but if you like what you do, it's something that comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people think like, oh, a teacher's just in it. Like they want more money. It's like, listen, we got into this knowing that we're not here to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this because this is something that we love to do. You know, we want to be able to make enough money to raise a family, own something in life, no question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just sad that teachers are having to prove that to the country.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, like, and again, I see it on TV where, you know, it's a lot of these like terrible situations for schools that they don't have textbooks or they don't have computers and they don't have the necessary needs to, you know, go on and advance in the school systems. And so it's sort of sad when you see the mayor stand up there and say, you know, that, you know, it's going to add X amount of dollars to the budget and, you know, we can't afford it because there's so many other things that we can afford that, you know, they can't find the money to value education, like you say.
I refuse to think that teachers, whether it be their salaries or schools, whether it be having an extra psychologist or social worker, I refuse to believe that those are the reasons why a mayor can't figure out his budget or her budget. I refuse to believe that. I mean, if we want to prioritize things as a common sense, like just in my mind, those wouldn't be the things that are on the chopping block for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also crazy to think, like you say, how you mentioned charter schools, and it just seems to me right off the bat that it's just like there's money to be made off those charter schools, whereas public school, there's not money to be made. And you see this with everything across the board in our government is like they'll get behind it if they can make some money off of it, where it's if they can't make money off of something, there's no benefit for them to put money into it. And it sucks. And it seems like some of the presidential candidates, hopefully that are, you know, vying to become the next president, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden just came out and said he supports the teachers. A lot of it come from the, you know, Democratic side. I don't follow too many like Republican candidates. I don't know if they're backing the student teachers.
Let's just put it like this. When my union comes out with the candidates that it's supporting, I can't remember the last time I saw a Republican on there. And the reason that they support these candidates is because they're pro schools, they're pro teacher. You know, the thing is people see union nowadays, and they think, oh, they're just in it so that they can get more and be greedy. And
That's what I wanted to ask you. Is a lot of people
protected
are.
us for what's that?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Is that some of the arguments that I've seen is that the unions are bad and that they're greedy and they're asking for a lot of money, and that even if they get the money, it goes to the administrators and not the actual teachers. Like, how does someone get appointed to like how do you become on the union board to fight for the teachers? Do you know how that process works or anything?
Yeah, the union members vote.
And are they
We have a
teachers?
vote every year to vote for the people that are going to represent us.
And are they teachers or are they administrators?
No, they're teachers. The administration has their own thing.
So anyone saying that
These are teachers from our district that spend a lot of time negotiating contracts, going out to rallies, standing with other teachers that are looking for contracts. I mean, that's the thing is, if teachers aren't supporting each other, it's just going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And especially nowadays where teachers are just a target for a lot of people. If teachers aren't supporting each other, then it's like we had last week, our president reached out to us to wear red in support of all the teachers in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's what I was going to ask you is what type of like support do you think other states outside of like do you think New York City, and I wanted to ask if this could be like a ripple effect, because I'm sure the same stuff goes on in New York. I'm sure California is just as bad in the inner cities. Do you think?
California teachers are having a rough time with it now too. I was talking to the president of our union and she was telling me about some of the things out there. It's like, she said, I can't believe that they're not on strike.
That's what I'm saying is like they see what's happening in Chicago and it's almost
But
just
teachers
like,
don't strike because they see another city striking.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers strike because it gets to the point where they just cannot work under those conditions anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a teachers union won't say, hey, look, Chicago's striking. Let's strike too. They're striking because they've reached rock bottom.
Yeah.
They can't go into work and do anything that's successful. So what are they going to do? They have to show the mayor that they mean business, and they're going to feel they're going to get hurt if they continue to treat them like that.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories in Chicago, and I guess you're right. Maybe it's just gotten to, and it has, I'm sure, gotten to the ultimate breaking point here where I know a lot of public schools have even been closed, and like Chance the Rapper donated money for like schools to stay open.
And like Denzel donating money to Mount Vernon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like when we're relying on
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, I know donated a ton of money to maybe Newark, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
When we're relying on private donations of extremely rich people to fund schools and programs, it's not sustainable, number one. Number two, that's not what we're like. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And people complain. I mean, if people complain about taxes, right? And taxes go to a lot of stuff. But one thing that I can't, like, I've been paying school taxes, in my property taxes, and I don't have any kids in public school yet. But if we're not investing in our schools, what's the point of taxes anyway? Like, if anyone can agree on something, it's that we should be educationally the strongest country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you were to look at our country from an outside perspective and be like, wait a second. So this city, Chicago, one of the most important cities in the United States of America, their teachers from the public school district, they're striking? That makes no sense to me. It's like mind-boggling to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure everyone listening or everyone knows someone who's a teacher. So I read like a tweet or something. It was like, even if you're not, involved in the marches or whatever, reach out to a teacher and let them, shoot them a text and say, hey, I support you, or, I'm with you in this cause or something like that. Because, I was trying to play devil's advocate on a couple of the points, but like, I really don't see an argument on the other side of it as to why teachers shouldn't be paid more, why they shouldn't have more support.
It all boils down to values in our country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah.
But the moment that we as a country start valuing education more and seeing that these are things that are really important, we talk about inner city crime, we talk about violence, we talk about all these different things. In my mind, and this is just my thinking as a teacher, education is the great equalizer. Someone who comes from a poor family, disadvantaged family, whatever it is, getting an education will give you an opportunity to rise above and rise beyond that. And I know that not everyone's starting on the same level, right? Like there are people that are very disadvantaged in our country. Mm-hmm. But provided someone can push themselves to get an education, that will be the great equalizer.
Yeah.
And we don't see it like that. We see it as kind of like just something that has to be done, an obligation. You know, it's unfortunate, but until that mentality, I think, changes, these strikes and these different things aren't going to change.
Yeah, I agree, and it goes back to what I said. I think a lot of it starts with greedy politicians who, you know, supported charter schools or, you know, took money away from schooling to help benefit themselves somewhere else.
And in their defense, they might not even have even known. People just hear charter schools and they're like, they're awesome. Mm-hmm. Why? What are they? Why are they awesome? You know, no one really challenges those things. They just hear that charter schools are great. That's it. That's all they know.
Yeah, I mean that's what I hear. That's what I think of when it comes to charter schools, but it almost goes into just like that Pleasantville mindset where it's just like these schools have all the perfect kids, there's no problems, whereas like one thing I appreciated about my high school was that there was diversity, and if you're taking all the good kids away from public schools, you're not going to have that mix of, you know, a rich kid and a poor kid interacting, and it makes problems worse in the school because you've only got bad kids, and then that in turn gets on the teacher who's frustrated, doesn't do as good of a job teaching, and you just have these bad schools, and that trickles down to everything. I know when me and Molly were looking for a house, the school district played a huge part in how much our house was, and if we were to resell the house, you know, what's the school like? And it just, school plays such a role in everything. People don't realize until they're in a situation and they have to decide on these things. So I think, I mean, we have to value this more, and I hope the mayor comes around and finds, you know, the money or a solution.
Well, I hope that that tweet that came out from the union leader, I hope it leads to something positive for the teachers. But this would have never happened had they not, gone on strike.
Yeah.
People remember that these things that they desperately need, no one would have seen it as an urgent issue had they not gone on strike.
Yeah.
It got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope it doesn't, I hope, or maybe I do hope it happens, that it happens in other cities, because I've got friends.
No, but the idea is that it never has to get to that point.
Yeah, right? But I don't think like mayors in other cities, hopefully mayors of other cities are watching this and they'll proactively, raise teachers' wages, but if it's not getting to that, it's bad in every city. So eventually it's going to get to some point in California and New York.
And every city is under mayoral control in terms of their education. There are school boards. Mm-hmm. And they negotiate with the school board. So it's not that it's always the mayor. It's just that whoever is in control of the schools ultimately will have that power to decide what's important and what's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't have too much more, and I have written down here school choice. That's something that I kept seeing. Is that like a term, or is that more like the charter school wave where people can decide what schools their kids want to go to?
It might be. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on it. I think hopefully across the board, it's pretty unanimous that teachers should get paid more, and we value education more in our country, because right now we don't.
That's why I love Bernie. Okay, I don't mean to cut you up, but I love Bernie because he sheds light on the fact that we're down here at the bottom fighting over peanuts when it comes to salaries, when there are people in this country that are making tremendous amounts of money, mm-hmm. that don't pay their fair share in taxes, and the middle class gets hit. I've been paying taxes my whole adult life, mm-hmm. right? And it seems to me like the people that are suffering the most, that are working the hardest and getting the least, are the middle class.
Yeah.
And and that's the problem is people look at these unions and then they look at what's going on with teachers, and instead of being supportive and saying, how could this possibly be happening? They're like, make 60,000. Well, I'm not going to make 60,000. Why should I let them? Hell no, they're not going to make 60,000. It's like we should all be supporting each other down here, while the people at the top are laughing at us, just saying, "Look at these schmucks down there. They're fighting over $60,000. You know, they're fighting over $15 an hour. They're fighting over these like minimum wage jobs, and instead of thinking about how we can lift that up, it's always the people that are on the same level, like almost looking to make sure that no one really gets above it.
Yeah,
that's a crazy. Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
no one looks at like beyond that to say, not no one, but a lot of people don't look beyond it to say, we're over here fighting over this, and this is what we're dealing with. I mean, let's look at other things that are happening right now with these tremendously rich people who don't pay anything.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful to have those people on the left at least fighting for that cause, because it puts these things that people have been talking about for a while on the table. And, you know, now you start a conversation about it where Chicago teachers can say, hey, we've got this guy who backs us. Let's go on strike. You know, whereas in the past, maybe they couldn't do it because they don't have the politicians supporting them. Now they can strike and have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and show up to the strike, and, you know, it starts getting more coverage on it. And that's a good thing. And I think whether or not, you know, Bernie and these people win, the fact that they're still fighting for these causes, and they're fighting pretty loudly for these causes, is a great thing. So I think we need more people like them. You know, you need more people in these other cities to take a stance for these teachers and fight for them. And the conversation will start getting louder about teachers. Like Chicago is just the tipping point, I think.
Well, I mean, it's already happened in West Virginia, Oklahoma.
But it's not as mainstream as Chicago, you know. No disrespect to those places, but it's not as glorious as Chicago and California and New York, where
it's not as in the national eye, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
When you have a big city like Chicago, I guess it strikes a different nerve. No offense to the teachers in West Virginia, because they were totally they needed to strike.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But yeah, I think when you look at a major city like Chicago,
but now other people with some influence start getting affected by this, and, you know, there could be a top political person or something whose kids are in these school, and now they're not going to school, and he's like, shit, this is affecting my life. So he's
I doubt it. There's no top political guy that's sending their kid to public school in Chicago, and that's the problem, is that they're not invested in the same thing that they're making legislation about. And
that's a good point.
I feel like that's the name of the game. Until it affects you personally, or until it affects a politician or someone personally, they'll never understand. There's no empathy. It's just until it affects you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm sure if the mayor's daughter or something was in one of those public schools, and I don't know if she even has any children.
I might be talking out of my ass right now. Like, they may have kids in the district. I don't know. But all I know is it's hard for me to believe that if they had a stake in it, that they would allow this system to get to where it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's super. It sucks to see it. You know, when I went down to work and I saw these huge swarms of people, they said there's like 32,000 plus teachers down there. But it's also really cool to see that, you know, these people could come together for one cause, and it all seemed pretty peaceful. I was able to walk through the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's teachers.
Yeah,
and students.
I know, but I mean, like, a lot of the teachers are normal human beings. They can get into an argument with a cop, and the news can cover that story. But I haven't heard any of these stories of just altercations or anything happening, and it just goes to show that, like, if people come together for a good cause, they can make a difference. Which I'm sure, hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Teachers are going to get what they want, because you can't go on without teachers. You can't not have schools. They need to come to a resolution, and ultimately teachers are going to get what they want, which is good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I think it's great that it's happening in Chicago because it's a conversation that needs to be had. I'm happy that politicians are talking about it, because for once, the little guy is winning, and teachers deserve to have more resources in their classroom.
Yeah, I don't know if they're winning. I mean, we'll see what happens with it, but
well, I mean, already the stuff they proposed for them to get is an increased wages and stuff like that.
I mean, so they're
it's not going to be still the most glamorous stuff,
They're willing to negotiate to get it better than it is right now, but we're still talking about a flawed system.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I have. I hope, like I said, it comes to a resolution quickly.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say on it? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you. Shout out to any teachers there. Shout out to anybody that knows a teacher.
I think everyone knows a teacher.
Everyone knows a teacher. But yeah, no, that's it. I was interested in it because I was affected by it in a small way. And I'm sure you've gotten texts and people asking you stuff. So I just was curious to hear your opinion.
Yeah. Thanks for talking to me, brother.
Okay. Love you. Thank you for jumping on and talking. Talk to you soon.
All right. Love you. Later.